Welcome to the Gynergy Effect, where energy meets intention and transformation begins.
We're your hosts, Garin and Yesi, partners in life, love, and purpose.
Here to share the tools, truth, and stories that helped us build a life from the inside out.
Whether you're seeking deeper health, conscious relationships, or your next level of purpose,
you're in the right place. Thank you for joining us today for episode 6. Man, time is flying by. I'm so grateful to be here with the love of my life, Yesi.
Thank you, baby.
And today we're going to be talking about creating your circle with intention and everything that means and why that matters. So you want to dive into this? Let's get right after it.
Community. So what's the importance of community in a world where we're so connected? Why do so many people feel alone? Especially after COVID, there seems to be a crisis of loneliness where people have all these tools to stay connected with each other, but they still feel isolated. So in this episode, we're going to dive into how we created an intentional community, or date zero groups, retreats, or experiences, and how anyone can create their own circle, their own community, and how to go about doing that.
I think that's great, because one thing that I know in my journey, I felt alone a lot. Yeah. And if I would have been supported, I know I probably would have been in a different situation and created an outcome. Yeah. But I had to go through that pain to really understand and learn why community is so important and why that matters. And until we feel that pain, sometimes it doesn't really resonate with us. And so I think today what's really important is people understand and take stock of their community, who's around them, are they being supported? Because this human experience doesn't need to be alone. Yeah. And we can create a lot better of an outcome if we have the right people that we're intentional about creating those relationships with.
That's exactly right. We weren't meant to be alone. We're meant to thrive in community and connection. And it's one of the most basic human needs, to feel loved, to feel connected. And a lot of the things that we do, how we build our relationship, how we build Gynergy is all around the concept of connection and community.
Right. And everybody's heard that quote, you are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And all of us may not think, like when we're looking at our friends and we're like, oh yeah, I'm around him because of X, or I'm around them because of Y, and that's not me. But in reality, the people that you surround yourself with are a mirror of where you are right now in your life. And maybe that's not your identity as a whole, but in this period of time, that is who you are if you think about it. So if you look around in those 5 people and you're like, wow, none of these people are who I envision myself being. They're not in alignment with my values and where I'm going. That's when we need to dive in and we need to look at and take stock and say, hey, do I need to find different circles? Should it be important for me to go seek that out? Because it became at a certain point in my life where the cost of not doing that was much greater than getting uncomfortable, putting myself in different rooms, and finding people that have the answers and that can help lift the expectations.
Yeah, so the key is going out there and asking yourself if the people you're surrounded with, if they're in alignment, not just with who you are right now, but who you're striving to be. Right. And also having the courage, if the answer is no, having the courage to let go of some of those relationships, however long they may be, however painful it might be, to really step into this next version of you with more alignment and surrounded by people that really are going to help you rise into your highest self.
Right. Especially as we're growing, I mean, there becomes a time where we evolve into a place where you turn to mentorship and you really are focused on giving back. There's another time and place where you're starting in a certain environment and you're working to really get in alignment and become what I like to say your highest self, your highest version of who you are as a human being. And during that climb, you're going up a mountain, and the more weight that you have attached to you that's not helping, or maybe you're helping pulling them, but is actually just dead weight that's either not contributing or pulling you down the other way. At a certain point, if you're on that mountain, are you going to continue to try to hold on, and you extend that energy just to stay stagnant and still? Or are you going to cut that and then allow yourself to continue and go? And as much as it may sound heartless or ruthless to say, hey, relationships, I'm just going to cut. You have an obligation to yourself to really be able to show up, to elevate yourself to where you desire to go. And then on the other side of that, you can go and really create that impact in a lot of different ways. But if you're in that part right now where you're on that journey and you're going through some different storms and you feel yourself being pulled down, really being intentional about the people that you surround yourself with and asking yourself when you walk into a room, are these people in alignment with that? Am I the one that's leading every room, or am I somebody that's walking in and there's people that are elevating me because they've already experienced and they're better and they've done that? And to me, that's really a huge part of the power of that as a man, having that brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, I mean, this is June's mental health month. And, a lot of men, they carry that weight, and there's suicide is a big thing that's not really spoken about. And that's because we isolate ourselves when we're going through that. I know I did. I know I got to a point where that was almost the decision I made. And because I chose to make a different decision around that and go out and seek brotherhood and that support, it changed my entire life. And now that's what me and you are working through Gynergy and Date Zero to do and bring out for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And one of the key points that you brought up is having that responsibility, right? Sometimes in lives you're gonna be put in situations and environments where you're not thriving. It is up to you to make the decision to get out of that environment and to really seek out, new relationships, new environments. And for me personally, I was very blessed in that I grew up in a big family as the baby of 9. So I was surrounded by my 8 siblings, my 3 brothers, and my 5 sisters growing up. So I was, in that sense, I was never like physically like alone. I always felt like with my family, I had a bit of a community aspect, right? Connection. I had loving parents and like loving brothers and sisters. But as far as when it came to my career and education, I felt in that environment that I felt like I was it was comfortable, I wasn't being challenged to really get to the next level. I felt like I had to leave that environment and go away for university, go to a different place where I was going to be challenged more mentally, stimulated more mentally to grow to the next phase. So there's a community that you can have with your family. There's also a community you can have outside of your family, with school, with being part of different brotherhoods or sisterhoods. But it's seeking those environments where you are going to be challenged and maybe make a little uncomfortable to grow.
That's really powerful. So it sounds like getting out of your comfort zone, seeking out people or environments that are more in alignment with you, what your vision is.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, it's really easy to become stagnant.
Yeah. It's really easy to stay comfortable. And I think human nature, we like to be comfortable. Sometimes when we get we feel discomfort, we get a little scared and we go back to what we're used to, what's normal. But that's not necessarily always what's best for us to get to the next level.
I don't know. I'm the opposite of that. I fear being comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know. As soon as I get comfortable, I'm always shaking it up a little bit. It's just part of
you are
my
built
nature.
Differently than most people, though.
And because of that, I isolate myself at times, and I carry a lot of weight. And sometimes, as a man, it becomes difficult to share, some of those things that we're carrying along with us. And so I'll prompt you is if you are a man and right now you're feeling that heaviness and a lot of weight and you feel like, other people won't understand, I promise you, I do understand. I've been there and I've been, at that place. So, we're here to help support you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. If you are watching this and you feel that way, please reach out, because it's bringing in that support to one another. Yeah. That's our mission now in life.
Yeah, and it can be easier for women to ask for support when needed. I think we all struggle sometimes to ask for support, but for men in particular, it sometimes can be a little bit harder because as a man, your society almost expects you to have it together, to be like the leader, to be, they equate strength with just not being able to ask for help or not being vulnerable. Like that sometimes society can make you feel like it's a sign of weakness, but really there's strength in asking for help, strength in being vulnerable.
Yeah. That brings us to one of my I feel like the most important tagline that I could say is, we all talk and we hear about masculinity all the time. It has this really negative connotation a lot. And I think that people are starting to understand that actually masculinity is important. But what is masculinity and what does that mean? To me, my definition of masculinity is confident vulnerability. If you can lead in a confident and vulnerable way, then that's what a real man should do. And that's when you can really create great connections with people and create really long-lasting relationships. And I think that's really important. So I think as a woman, when you hear me say masculinity and confident vulnerability, because obviously the other side of that perspective is so important, how do you think that resonates or correlates with you?
I think for a man to really be comfortable being vulnerable, like actually makes him more attractive and more of a leader, because you know that he's able to feel his emotion, he is being real and authentic. And I would much rather be led by someone who can feel real emotion and be, confident enough to show me that when he needs support, when he's being vulnerable, than to be led by someone who's not able to do that. Because I'm not able to connect with them at a deeper level. I feel the more vulnerable you are, the deeper the connection it creates. So I would much rather have a leader that I can connect with deeply than someone who, is pretending to be strong all the time and leading and just having like this fake confidence.
So the other side of that, and I think the pushback that people will say is like, yeah, but when I'm confident with or vulnerable with a woman, then it feels like she takes advantage of that, or that she looks at me as being weak, and that's not attractive, or they're uncomfortable. What would you say? What is that line for a man to balance, on that aspect from a woman's perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that by you being vulnerable, it creates a safe space that allows me to also be vulnerable and step into a more vulnerable place where I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And I don't see it as a sign of weakness. I see it as strength and something that's going to create a much deeper bond between us.
So I think the confident side of that is the other side of when we're talking about, as a man, we have, view to be a leader, to be in our masculine energy, to be strong, tough, carry this weight. The confident side of the vulnerability is a part that I think creates that strength and that sexiness behind it, because what it means is that you can open up, you can be authentic, you can be real, and not put a fake layer over yourself or be an actor. Instead, be authentic.
Yeah.
And when you're genuine and authentic, to me, that's where that confident vulnerability means. And then you can really come from a place of understanding and have those conversations. So when we're talking about community, big part of community is communication. And so I think communicating from that place, and we all have these desires that we all have this longing to be surrounded by people that are going to help support us, going to help drive us. So seeking out a mentor, seeking out that community, I think is really important. What about from the women's side of things? As far as men, I think, are more isolated, finding that brotherhood that helps strengthen, drive them, have, we get in a group of men that testosterone raises, you work out together, the impact and that energy level raises. That's where you experience that from working out at the gym by myself to going to like It Factor, where it's like you're in a group environment, it elevates everybody's energy, you drive a little bit farther. That's another impact. That's on the men's side. And on the women's side, what are some of the benefits of finding a great community?
Yeah, I think on the women's side is very similar. The women experience is so unique, and we go through so many, like a wider range of emotions than men, because we just, we have hormones involved, and I think having a group of women who understand you and you can be safe to share those experiences. And there's some things that no matter how much I explain to you as my partner, as a man, you won't understand. And we need to have a community where we feel seen, like truly seen in certain things, And I think you can only get that from a community of women who are going through the same experience. There are some things that are so unique, like menstrual cycles and giving birth, that no matter how much you talk to a man, they're never going to understand that experience because they haven't lived it and they never will experience it. So having a circle of women who understand those experiences from being able to go through it firsthand is extremely valuable. And having that feminine energy, we women, there's different needs that are satisfied by, by your partner than by your group of friends and your community of women. And I think some of those is really feeling seen in your woman experience, and that the fact that, you can be a little more emotional. Some days you can be happy, some days you can be mad. You can have like a wider range of emotions and, feel truly seen in that. I think it's something that's extremely valuable. And also like it's empowering to know that other women are having these experiences and also able to work through them and thrive. And that's empowering in itself.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And finding communities that are like-minded, like you've been floating around, your fit and feminine, community, or that you're, talk about that a little bit, what your thoughts are around that and why that matters to you.
About fit and feminine?
Yeah.
So before I dive into that, so I was fortunate enough to grow up surrounded by women. I have 5 sisters, so I feel like, I was very fortunate in the fact that I had my sisters to share their experiences with me as I was growing up. But not everybody has that like sisterhood built in their family. So it's really important to find that, because I can't imagine like my life without like my sisters, without having that their perspective. And I think that shaped me into who I am today in a lot of different ways, and to be able to really, I feel like a lot of times where I didn't feel safe going to my mom because it was my mom figure, even though my mom, very safe space. I love my mom and she was always incredible. There's some things where it felt safer to go to like a sister. So having that, like where you can, you can know someone you can tell everything to, that's something that you can only find from a sisterhood.
So I know you've been floating around this idea that I really love, and I think it would be really powerful because I don't see a lot of women's groups, and granted, I'm not tapped into a lot of women's groups, to be honest, and I don't see anything that's around this, because you have a lot of different, like, feminine, or you have fitness, but I never really see anything that, like, is a balance between fit and feminine. And I know you're thinking about and working on, starting a community or women's group around that. What is that in your mind? What are you thinking about with that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there's a lot of fitness communities for women. There's also a lot of, maybe not as many, but there's some either workshops, events, or groups about female energy, feminine energy, and embodiment. But I haven't seen one that really combines the two. And I think as busy professional women, entrepreneurs, sometimes it can be really challenging to stay in your feminine energy and also to like stay fit. Usually it's like, the struggle of like staying fit and keeping up with, everything else and staying in your feminine energy. And that's been one of my biggest challenges this year, like in the midst of like growing a business and, building our relationship, how do I stay fit and feminine? So the idea behind this is really to create this community that I crave. So, and back to our beginning of what we were saying, if it's up to you to really take the initiative to build a community that you crave, that you want to be a part of. So Fit and Feminine is a community that I'm craving in this season of my life. I'm craving a community of women who are strong, successful, whether they're entrepreneurs or working corporate, just crushing it in different areas of their lives, but they're craving a community that feels safe to be in their feminine energy, to be fit, to be active, and just going through that experience with other women who are also, sharing some of those struggles together. Because I don't feel currently I have a community like that, and it's what I'm craving.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think a lot of people resonate with that because there is like that balance, right? It's like, how do you like kick off and be this badass woman, especially with like just the culture or the movement that was happening that I think was, you have a pendulum that always swings from here, it swings back over here, and then it starts to, center back out. And I think we went from here to way over here, and it got in my opinion, way out of control. And now it
You're
brings
talking about
back.
the feminist
I'm
movement?
talking about feminist movements, absolutely. Yeah, I think it got way
Yeah,
out of
definitely.
control. When you're talking about having sex randomly and glorifying that and like fuck men and you don't need men and you know I'm better by myself and you know there's a reason that the symbiotic relationship has so much value and is so important. It's been you know this is part of the human experience is what it's meant for,
Yeah.
right? And so when you alienate one part of it and try to mass culture that and create a movement towards that that has real ramifications and it creates issues, systemic issues.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women gravitated towards, they were empowered to go into the workplace, start their own businesses, and thrive in that sense. That sort of went to one extreme where, the feminine energy aspect of it kind of got lost a little bit. So we're trying to kind of bring it back. But on the other end, as women who are trying to build businesses, who are working with their partners, who are working corporate, like being in those roles is very masculine in itself. Yeah. So how do you balance that with being in your feminine energy? And that's something that I'm, to be completely honest, that I struggle with currently. Like I'm constantly like building, organizing, planning, which is very masculine. And this is another reason why, I have rituals in place to bring me back to my feminine energy. And doing that, I mean, it's powerful. But imagine doing that with a group of other women who are also going through that experience, doing it together, supporting each other, empowering each other to go through that. How powerful could that be?
Could be unlimited possibilities.
Yeah.
So I salute you for
Yeah.
your vision, and then you're taking actions to create that. And, and we
Thank
have,
you. There are days where, it is, even though I'm, I live in a building surrounded by friends, I go to the gym and I have friends, like my experience as far as being an entrepreneur is so new to me, especially a woman in a relationship, like it can feel isolating. So having that community of women who are going through that, it's really, really valuable.
Yeah. So you couple that, and then you layer on top of that, that because that's a part of Gynergy when you roll that out. And then we have Date Zero, and what we're building as a community and together through gratitude. And that gratitude is really the premise of Date Zero and taking action around gratitude. How can that, resonate with people as well? So you have, fit and feminine, but then you talk about Date Zero, gratitude. You talk about, these practices that we're putting in place through that community and the power. How are you seeing that resonate with people?
How am I seeing Date Zero resonate with people?
Right, the community when they do it together as a group.
So with Date Zero we have 3 options. So we have the option of going through a journal self-guided or going through a group experience where you're it's a group experience where you are on a call with people once a week and you're sharing experiences. So going through a journal by itself is powerful, but going through it with other people who are sharing their own experiences, who are also craving that connection, that community, is that much more powerful. And from the people who have gone through the program, we have heard that going through it, like the best part of the program is the community aspect, the connection, and to know that you're not alone. You're not, sometimes you feel like you're the only one going through something, and then you hear someone else, and whether it inspires you or you're like, oh wow, I'm not alone, or I can reach out to this person for support. There's so much value in that. There's accountability, but there's also like community. And even with Date Zero, with our house build, a big part of that house build was the community aspect, right? We go down to Mexico to build that home, but we're really, more than a home, we're building community with the people that we go down there with the people there. And it really brings us back to our basic human need for connection.
Yeah. That's one of my biggest learnings is when we go and we do these service retreats or go down to Mexico and we are with people and we volunteer at these orphanages, that human connection that's created, those shared experiences, those transcend. Yeah. And it creates a unique bond that you have with the people that you go down there with. And it just kind of creates this filtration too, as far as where people, what they value, their value system, where they are, that you just instantly, are able to be that open, that vulnerable, that confident, way and with somebody, which I think is really important. What other communities have you found in your life that have been impactful for you? I know for me, I'm part of EO, Entrepreneur Organization. That's been really,
you want to
really
talk about
powerful.
that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's entrepreneurialization. It's, one of the biggest. It is the biggest entrepreneur group in the world. So there's chapters all over the world. Every country has it, and maybe besides North Korea or something. And San Diego's like the fourth biggest chapter in the United States. But there's qualifications. You have to go through interviews. You have to do all this stuff to be a part of it. And the quality of people. It's really focused on entrepreneurs that are in a journey that are operating, managing employees, going through unique experiences, carrying all that weight, waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and not being able to breathe because they don't know where payroll's coming from. Like unique stuff that you deal with as an entrepreneur that you don't in normal everyday life, with people. And it is a support group, and they've done a brilliant job in how they do that, and the learnings, the teachings, the resonance shares, all those aspects. And so I've learned a lot from that, and that's what we're really bringing into this Gynergy and the Date Zero, and implement some of that stuff in your Fit and Feminine. But finding those groups like that help elevate you, that are around your interest, around where you are in life, man, the power of that is so big. And we talked about doing this journal, the gratitude experience by yourself or with a group of people, and it's proven that 80% in developing new habits, something like this, you're 80% more likely to follow it all the way through if you're with a group of people. And I think finding whatever it is, whether it's Date Zero, something else, doesn't matter, but finding that support system really can be life-changing, for you.
Yeah, one of the first communities that I've been a great, very blessed to be a part of is the Glute Squad. So even before I moved to San Diego, I started following Brett Contreras. I knew he had like this gym called the Glute Lab in San Diego. So when I first moved here, I was on a mission to go to the Glute Lab and be just to meet him, be in the gym, and focus on building glutes, but also strength training, more than just glutes. But when I joined this community, it was a really strong and empowering group of women when you go to the gym that are just hyping each other up, cheering each other on. Like it's a very safe space to lift, to be you. And being a part of that community really allowed me to step into a different version of me, not only get stronger physically, be more confident, and just meet so many incredible friends that are still a big part of my life today. And that was back 7 years ago. And we call it the Glute Squad. Funny name, but no, it's being part of a community like that where you feel safe, where you feel seen, and it empowers you to, be stronger and just achieve different. And since I joined the Glute Lab, I've done bodybuilding competition. I launched a fitness coaching business. I did a couple of strong lifting competitions, things that I never thought I would be doing. And I don't know if I would have done these things if I wasn't part of this community who made me feel like I could do it too, because they were doing it and they were inspiring me to do it. I was very intimidated the first time I went there, I'm not gonna lie, because these girls were so strong. But the more I connected with them, I realized they were just, they're just other women going through this experience. And I think that's a beauty of being in communities, that you realize that initially you may be intimidated or think you're so different, but at the end of the day, you're more alike than different, and we're all just craving that connection, and it's really special. And that's a big part of the Fit and Feminine, the inspiration, and the fit side is from the Glute Squad. So I have that fitness community. I don't have the fit and feminine, so it would be a merge of that with feminine energy and embodiment.
Love that. Yeah. It's funny because when you first told me I'm part of the Glute Squad, I'm like, what the fuck is the Glute Squad? What is that? No idea. And so I always come at things from an open mind because I've learned in life, one, never say never, because you just never know. And two is come from a place of understanding and learning, because I'm sure people could just judge, Glute Squad, it's just a bunch of girls, and short little things showing off their butts and wanting attention. But in actuality, I got a lot of respect for everybody that's a part of that community. And I've met, basically everybody. They're all really great people that, desire to be the best version of them in different ways. And they're all really fitness focused and dedicated to that. And then you have Brett that's leading that. And, when I first met him, I didn't know what to think either. And, you know, you can see he's just very, from my view, very authentic in what he desires to do. He is passionate about his craft, and his craft is sculpting, you know, women. And he found a great niche, and he built a huge business out of it. There's so much to learn from him because he did it in such a great way. Like, it's so scalable, you know, and how he approaches it. And just the interactions that I've seen, you know, from you guys and all of that aspect, it's like this person wants to build a great community that's focused on, you know, uplifting women and impacting people. And I love some of the dinners that you guys have and the conversations where it's like prompting these different like shares. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and to one of your points is, you know, it's from the outside it can look like a bunch of fitness girls, you know, influencers, but really, like, a lot of the women in this gym, they're doing like incredible things. We have a New York Times bestseller. We have DJs. We have women who are leading breathwork sessions. We have, you know, bodybuilders. We have strong lifters. We have some fitness coaches. We have corporate girlies. We have it's like a wide range of different backgrounds and who are incredible things with their lives. And also, like you mentioned, we have a bunch of like dinners, events where we're gathering as a family, and it's not just like we're you know, in the gym to like get stronger. It's building community and family. And I was just in 2 weeks ago, we just had a family dinner at one of our members' houses, and it was just incredible time to bond and just be in community.
Yeah, and it's something that doesn't just come to you. So either you got to be like you and go create the community that you seek, right? And we're doing that with Gynergy. We're doing that with Day Zero. We're doing that with the service retreats, with Fit and Feminine. I'm working on something right now as well. And then, or two, you go seek it out and be intentional around seeking it out. And there's places out there because that is a human desire and a human need that is being fulfilled. And so you are not alone being in this rat race that we call it, or just on a hamster wheel, doing the same things day in, day out. It's time to break free of that. Go and be intentional and seek out something that gets you outside of your comfort zone. And when you're inspired by something, that is a moment to take action around it.
Okay, let's move on and talk about our personal circles, our personal circle of friends, and what that looks like, setting boundaries. How do we reflect on whether the people or closest personal circle, they're in alignment? What are some of the questions you would ask yourself to determine if your closest circle are these people that you're seeking out because you want to be liked, or because you want to be lifted? Are these people that are in alignment with who you are now or who you're trying to be? What are some of those questions you should be asking yourself?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, it starts with asking the question of yourself. Am I showing up for my friends in the way that I desire my friends to show up for me?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is no, then that is the first place to start.
Yeah.
Because I noticed a pattern where I wasn't responding to people.
Yeah.
And people had an expectation of me responding. I would just get busy, and then I'd forget, and then I'd end up circling back later. And that's not the best practice, right? And so people didn't feel like I was valuing their friendship or who they are or the communication. Yeah. And that's always been a struggle that I just have, right? I'm great in the moment, and I can be present. I can make somebody feel seen and heard, and I'll be there. And then when I'm outside of that moment, I have a hard time carrying on that connection points, right? And continuing. And I'm actually working on something right now to help solve that through AI, and that's a big part of my life now. Yeah. If I'm not in alignment with how I expect other people to show up for me as a friend, and or what my value system is, negotiables, non-negotiables, then I can't have that expectations, or I have to shift my expectations for other people in my view, right? And so what I would start with is first, how would I, when I write down what is a great relationship mean to me? And with a friend, with a significant other, whatever it may be, and I write those things out. Then ask the question of yourself: am I living in alignment with these things? Am I that person? If you're not, that's probably the first place to start.
Yeah.
Then after that, it becomes very easy to say, okay, here are what a great friend is. Here's how I'm living in alignment with that.
Yeah.
Now my expectation of my friend circle is this. And the worst thing you can do is cut off a relationship because of said expectations. A lot of times we get in a trap where I expect something from you and I'm not communicating my expectation. I just expect for you to know. And when you don't meet those expectations because I haven't properly communicated to you and you're not aware of it, and then I hold you to those expectations, that's a form of self-sabotage. That's a form of creating outcomes and relationships and issues that don't need to be there. So one, I think understanding within myself, what does a great friendship look like? Living truth to that. Communicating very clearly what those expectations are so somebody's not guessing or walking on eggshells playing that game. And then three, having non-negotiables. If somebody's not in alignment with that, they don't have to be your friend. And quite frankly, it might be easier for them not to be your friend. And so instead of holding on to that energy or resentment that's created from that, let that go. And that can be one of the most powerful tools that you can utilize in your life to help elevate and continue to build these friendships that are in alignment with you. And there's reasons for different seasons, and there's people that are going to come and go. And us understanding that's part of the human experience and the evolution, that's okay too. Yeah. And I have a lot of conversations with people around that. And it's always very consistent in that aspect of it. Like people are holding on to something that's not in alignment. But once they cut it.
How would you handling a situation where it's someone, maybe a friend you've had since your childhood, or even a family member, but they're violating some of your non-negotiables and it's hurting you, it's costing you your peace? How would you handle that?
Obviously, when you come to, long friends or family members, it becomes tough because you have a lot of emotion, a lot of history that's tied to that. Yeah. And if you're not in a good place yourself, and that's causing you to snowball or it's causing that weight that is not creating any positive outcome for anybody, then there's a way to create distance or separation from that relationship. And it's unfortunately part of this experience that we had, because as you go and through, and if you're very clear on your vision in life, there's going to be that weight that you're carrying alongside of you that at a certain point you cannot keep carrying if they're not along in that journey with you. It's one thing if they're along in the journey and they're working on getting there. It's another thing if they're going the opposite direction altogether. And if they're going the opposite direction, it's not on me to put my expectations onto them, because that creates a lot of resentment, and that's going to create more friction. DMX said this, I love this interview that he had, where, I could have somebody come in and I have $1 million on the table, and I have my friend come in that I know has high character, high value, and I know I can leave that money and it's going to be there. You can have another friend, and he's my friend, but I know he's less trustworthy. I know if I have that money there, I'm going to come back and 20K may be missing, right? But I don't expect anything different because I understand who that person is, and I expect what is within his character, right? So if you are going to have those people in your life, understand who they are, understand where they are in their life, and don't allow that attachment or those expectations to create that resentment, because I know that created a lot of friction in my life. I've had a lot of expectations for people that they were never able to come to, or vice versa, and that created resentment, frustration, and it ended up creating like this explosion instead of just understanding. And so those painful lessons have been, valuable.
Sounds like communication is very key with any relationship and setting the expectations.
Yeah. Communication is key in any relationship to set expectations. What would be a way that you would say, if you're in a relationship that's not in alignment from your perspective, but it's an important relationship to you, or you have this shared, how do you shift, or do you shift, or what is the situation there?
I think it's first it's important to sit, really reflect and figure out why it's not in alignment. What are the reasons it's not in alignment? Is it what, when you're clear on your values, is it violating one of your values, one of your non-negotiables? Which one is it? Why is it not in alignment? And then having an honest and open conversation about it with the other person and figuring out if this is something you can both work through and find a way where your non-negotiables are not being violated, where you don't have to compromise your non-negotiables. You shouldn't have to compromise your values and your non-negotiables. You can have relationships, and you are going to have relationships with people with different values. But that doesn't mean that you have to compromise your own, your own integrity, your own value system. You can agree to disagree and have different values.
Right.
And I think that's expected. That's important in any relationships,
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
We're not going to be friends and even partners with everyone who feels exactly the same about different every little thing. That's just not realistic. But you can find a way to respect each other's values and respect each other's non-negotiables. I think that if you can have an open conversation about it, you can save the relationship, maybe set up boundaries where, it's not going to make you compromise your own value system
Right.
and your own non-negotiables. But if there is a relationship where you had that conversation and you can find a way to come to an agreement that doesn't violate that value system and the non-negotiables, then I think it's probably worth reevaluating that relationship or creating some distance with that
Right.
relationship. And there's the saying that if it costs you your peace or your purpose, it's too expensive. So if it's costing you your peace, then it's not worth it. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship from childhood, even a family member, you have to protect your peace, whatever that means. But I wouldn't just go straight into that. I would definitely go through the steps of figuring out why and having that honest and open conversation. Because at the end of the day, most people are going to come from a place of understanding if you communicate in that way. If you communicate in a way that's loving, respectful, and honest, you're going to create that space for them to feel safe, to be vulnerable in return, and to share what's in their heart, what they're really feeling.
That's so true. I remember just one time, I'm like one of those people that I give people a hard time that I care about, right? And joke around with people. And I have a friend a dear friend of mine, and we're golfing, and I'm talking shit. I love to talk shit, but he doesn't receive it that well, right? And so I could see he was getting kind of upset, and then he shared with me hey, I don't like it when you talk to me like that. I don't like doing that. It's just who I am. I don't like it. And then okay, well, I stopped doing it because I wasn't aware of that, right? It just, to me, it wasn't ill intent. I just didn't know. And if he never communicated that to me, I wouldn't be able to adjust how I approach the situation. I think another example when you're talking about negotiables, non-negotiables, and how you balance that is we don't drink. We made a decision to take that decision off the table, and this year we decided, hey, we're just not going to drink this year. And when we go out with people, everybody seems to really respect that and understand that. And if I go out with somebody and they're continue to try to get me to drink, because someone can pressure me all they want, that's just going to reinforce me not wanting to do it or not doing it, because I'm not going to do it either way, right? Yeah. But if somebody was just going to continue to give me a hard time, and they can do whatever they want, I'm okay with that, right? It doesn't bother me. They drink if they're my friend. I'm not any different because I don't drink. It's just a decision I make for myself, and we made together. But if they're going to just sit there and try to get me to drink and do all those things, and
they're not respecting your boundaries,
not respect my boundaries, then that's somebody I'm going to look at and say, okay, this probably isn't a relationship that's in alignment. And other ones that are hotly contested topics are politics, religion, right? It's somebody can have their view, and that's okay with me. And we can have a conversation. We can have different ways of looking at it. And there's a lot of times that, unfortunately, that those things, because we lost the ability to communicate and just talk about things, it seems creates this, resentment or this lack of being able to come from a place of understanding.
People start making assumptions. And having this conversation, I've also reflected in the fact that in the past I haven't always been good at communicating, and I've distanced myself from people without first having those honest and open conversations. And I've lived with a level of like, there's always repair you can do, and regret. There's a level of like regret in not going through it and having that conversation, because a lot of those things could have been resolved through communication without just, distancing myself immediately. I think it's really important to communicate openly and then make the decision once you have had that conversation. And
So-
once after the conversation, to your point, to see if like there's a changed behavior that is in alignment with your values and with those non-negotiables.
So one practice that we have in the Date Zero is about communication and mirroring and those aspects of things. So, when it's hard for people to have a conversation with someone, what's some tools or tricks that, they can be able to implement?
I would say just speak from the heart. Most people, it just come from like a loving and honest place where you're not attacking the person, you're not being insulting, you're just saying, hey, I value this relationship enough to have this conversation. This is, when you do this, makes this, I feel like you're not respecting this boundary, and this is why. And I would love to, because I value our relationship and I would love to continue this relationship. I would love for us to find a way to, to have this relationship in a way that feels in alignment to both of us. I think just coming from a loving place where you're expressing how much you love them, how much you value them, and that you want to work together to continue having this relationship versus just attacking when you always do this, you never do that, you never call me, you never text back. Like they're probably not going to be very receptive if you're attacking them right off the bat.
Yeah, and it actually might do the opposite and reinforce those behaviors, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it does.
Because of resentment. And so one skill set I've learned, from that Chris Voss, and what is his book called? Great book, by the way. But Chris Voss was an FBI negotiator. He developed a whole strategy. He started the Black Swan Group. Never split the difference. And there's all kinds of learnings. But one tactic, I guess, what's great about this stuff is it's all about enhancing your communication. So it's about being able to communicate in a way that people understand instead of communicating in a way that creates resistance, right? And so one thing that he talks about is, communicate to understand, be a mirror, right? So if I'm having an issue, I'm not telling them you're doing this. It's like when we're having, when you're not texting, when I don't receive texts from you in the way that I expect, it seems like you don't value my time or energy, instead of like, you don't value my time and energy. It seems like you don't value my time and energy, and that makes me feel like this relationship isn't important. And for me, this relationship is important. So really, I just want to understand, do you value this relationship, or, can you share with me if that's in alignment with you or not? And if you just talk from a place of understanding and then listen. So if you answered me and then I just was quiet and listened and come from that place and then mirror that back, a lot of times it just naturally will allow the conversation to flow. So there's a lot of great practices that you can put into place to prepare you, for those type of conversations as well. So we talk about repairing relationships or understanding if they're in alignment. What about developing new relationships with people and attracting your tribe and the community of, people that may be more in alignment with where your future is and where you want to go?
Yeah, I think as you get older, it's harder to maintain friendships. So as you get older, there has to be more intention around being the initiator, reaching out and hosting the dinner, hosting the game night, planning like the girls' night, and really being the person to curate that experience, and eventually, that community is gonna start growing. I think it's there's a personal responsibility. I feel as we get older, we kind of expect the other people to reach out to us first. We get caught up with our lives, that we kind of, we can say like, she never reaches out to me, she doesn't like me, or she doesn't want to be my friend anymore. But you can ask yourself, have I reached out? Have I made an attempt to plan a lunch, a dinner, a game night? Have I really taking the time to initiate. And a lot of times, if we initiate, we're going to find that that's how you build like the most meaningful relationships. As you get older, like, people get busy and they're not always going to be the ones to come to you.
Right.
So why not build, like, you take the initiative and build that community yourself?
Great example of that. We went to dinner last night. Two incredible people, Max and Claudia. Like, they're some of the just most genuine, down-to-earth people. They're leaders. They live what they speak. And, like, I love our conversation. We'll go to dinner and we'll be there 3 hours. And even we're there late, and I go to bed early. So it's like, I didn't even realize how late it was. When we were working to schedule, dinner together, it was really hard to align us on our schedules. And, there was times where like, hey, set it. And then it just didn't fall through. It just fell through. And I could have took that as like, oh, maybe they don't want to do it, or maybe there's resistance, or start telling these stories in my mind. But I was like, hey, if we don't book it, let's just get a book, the date set, then this is never going to happen. And we finally got it done. And at the end of the dinner, like, Garin, thank you so much for ensuring that we all got together, because this was important to us. And we're all so busy, right? And so instead of creating stories behind something that there aren't stories to be created for, just live in those moments and understand stuff isn't about you a lot of times. So a lot of times it's not like we think, oh, somebody responds a certain way or what. A lot of times that's not about you. And I think Mel Robbins, talks about this quite a bit. And
the let them theory.
She does a great job. She took something, and I relate this necklace is about stoicism and the smile on the face of death and being, here. And what I think she does was she was able to bring stoicism, and I resonate with this because I work on that through gratitude as well, and make it very simplified in a way that women, men, everybody can resonate with. Because I think if you look at stoicism, it's probably highly dominated by men as far as like who that relates to, resonates with. She was able to take that and really, work that through a really impactful way. And shout out to Mel Robbins, because
really simple rule. Let them.
And I think that's
very powerful though.
Not taking that stuff personal.
So, and stop waiting to be invited, right?
Yeah. So create your own. Be the creator.
Create the room you're seeking to be in. Create. Stop. Yeah.
Just like what you're talking about.
Stop waiting to be invited and create the room that you're seeking.
Zero. Yeah. So create those rooms.
Yeah.
Elevate those and show up. It's probably another one, right? If you are invited and it's invite. So the power of saying no, and that's why I think cutting relationships that aren't in alignment are so important, because you can only do so much. You can only be so many places. So if the power of saying no is important, and being intentional with the rooms that you put yourself in, and then showing up to those rooms, all that I think is necessary.
Yeah.
A lot of great information I think that we're talking about today. Is there anything else that you want to discuss on today's episode of the Gynergy Effect?
What about some prompts for our listeners? If they're thinking right now, what are some questions they should be asking themselves to determine if something's in alignment?
Well, I think first doing that exercise, writing what was a perfect, a friend. What do I expect from a friend? What does a great relationship look like? And then asking yourself, do I show up for those people that way? And then I would say, make a list of like who's in alignment with that and who's not. Yeah. And the people that aren't, before you just cut it, why aren't they in alignment? If it's something that's like non-negotiable, just cut that, right? And start investing in new relationships or the other people that you have. And then the ones that may not be in alignment because there's unset expectations or there's just some history that created some resentment, have that conversation, prep yourself, prep them. Worst thing you can do is be prepped and then all of a sudden catch them off guard and they have this expectation. Let them know, hey, I want to go to dinner. I want to grab coffee. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that have been on my mind. Are you willing to do that? Can we make that happen? That way they're coming from a place and they're mentally prepped for that. I think that's only fair as well. Yeah. And so I think if you do that and then really identify, like, what is your highest self? Like, who is that and who are they surrounded with? And, the book Think and Grow Rich, he created his own like advisory council and stuff. So of like the Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Edison, all these people. Obviously, you could do that theoretically and in your mind, and I actually do stuff like that as well. But really what I'm talking about is like for your future self of where you're going, who are those people, and then start attracting those people into your lives. But how are you showing up to attract those people?
So really get clear on what is the community that you crave and what kind of people will be part of that community, and what step can I take now to get closer to that. And
the more clear you are about it, the more that comes into alignment. That's how I attracted Yesi, because I was very clear about what it is that I desired, and I wrote that out very specifically.
And really also to pay attention how you feel around people, right? Do I feel more like myself? Do I feel like I'm like dimming myself or a version of myself that's smaller when I'm around this person? Really analyzing how you feel when you're around. Does this person feel safe, like home? Like, do I feel uplifted, or do I feel like I'm shrinking myself to fit in? I'm just trying to be liked, or am I being my most authentic self?
And I would say that's part of a questions about to yourself too.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not being authentic to me when I'm in rooms with people, why? Yeah. And why do I feel like I need to be somebody else? I desire to show up as me in any room that I am, and everything around me will correlate to that. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I would rather know right away if somebody's in alignment because I am me, than to not be in alignment with myself to attract.
Identify if that's someone that's meant to be in your life.
And it doesn't mean you can't adjust your communication. It doesn't mean you have to be rigid and have that friction behind it. You can be fluid, and you can actually be more fluid because you understand who you are as a person.
So don't change who you are to be in a room.
You don't change who you are, but you can be fluid like water, like Bruce Lee, be like water. And I think that if you really think about that, it should resonate.
Be authentic to who you are.
Right. Well, that was a great episode. I think we dropped a lot of knowledge and did some really great things there. I hope it resonated with people. If you're listening, I hope you got value. We're going to continue to do this, and give us your feedback too, because we want to get better. We desire for this to be something we do for the foreseeable future and create a big impact and ripple effect through it.
And community is at the heart of Gynergy and what we're building, a relationship or community. We're not meant to go through this journey alone, so we're just incredibly grateful to be in this journey together. Thank you for all the love and support.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And so if you don't have that community, be the one that goes and creates that community. You can also, if it resonates with you, be a part of the Gynergy community. We're all about helping people through gratitude, like-minded, through purpose, being intention, and it attracts a great tribe of people. Find out more about that in Instagram at the Gynergy Effect or on our website, gynergy.com. And join us at our next service. We have all these different events that we do, these service retreats.
We're hosting another house built in the fall. Right. That's one of the best ways to build community. We're hosting other experiences even before the house build. So
people that you connect with and bond that you create, it's going to be really, really powerful. So if this resonates and you find value from it, please share it, like, subscribe, share, do all those things. Right now, take that action, because that's how we continue to create this ripple effect and move this forward. Until next time, we'll see you. Thank you.
If this episode spoke to your soul,
share it with someone you love and tag us at the Gynergy Effect. We'd love to connect.
And remember, your energy is your power. Use it with intention.